Single dad fixed a stranger's flat tire in the rain for free. The CEO found him with a life-changing offer, a true story. He almost didn't stop. That's the part nobody talks about in these kinds of stories. Everyone loves the moment when someone does the right thing, but nobody talks about the 2 or 3 seconds before that, when you're tired, running late, and your brain is already making excuses. It was a Tuesday morning. The sky had been spitting rain since before sunrise. The roads were slick, the windshield wipers were doing their best, and he had his 9-year-old daughter sitting in the passenger seat, school bag on her lap, half asleep. He was supposed to be at work by 8. It was already 7:42. They'd had a slow morning. The school bus had broken down the day before, and the replacement hadn't shown up. So he was driving her himself, which meant he was also going to be driving himself to work right after. And his warehouse supervisor wasn't exactly the patient type. That's when he saw the car. A dark gray Mercedes, sitting on the shoulder of the highway, with its hazard lights blinking. Rain drumming on the roof. A woman standing next to it, one hand holding an umbrella that the wind kept fighting, the other hand on her phone. She wasn't waving anyone down. She was just standing there, doing what you do when you're stuck, trying to fix it through a screen. He slowed down. His daughter looked up from the window. He slowed down a little more. Then he looked at the clock. 7:43. Then he looked at the woman again, her nice shoes completely soaked through, her jacket darkening from the rain. He pulled over. "Dad?" his daughter said. "Give me 10 minutes," he said, and got out of the truck. The woman looked up when she heard the door. She was probably in her mid-50s, the kind of person who clearly had things to do and places to be. Even standing in the rain on the side of a highway, she had that quality. Composed, sharp, not easily rattled. She looked at him the way people look at strangers who pull over, grateful and cautious at the same time. "I've got roadside assistance coming," she said. It wasn't rude, it was just informational, like she wanted to be clear she wasn't helpless. He nodded. "They say how long?" She glanced at her phone. 90 minutes. He walked around to the back of her car, looked at the flat tire, then opened the bed of his truck. He had a jack in there. A tire iron. The kind of tools you carry when your own car has let you down enough times that you just start being prepared. "I can have it done in 10, he said. "Maybe 12 if the lug nuts give me trouble." She watched him for a second. Then she stepped back and let him work. He wasn't the kind of man who talked while he worked. He got the jack under the frame, positioned it right the first time, started cranking. The rain hadn't let up at all. His jacket was soaked through in under 2 minutes. He didn't say anything about it, didn't make a face, just kept working. She watched him from under her umbrella. After a moment she said, "You do this a lot?" "When I can," he said, without looking up. "You're going to be late somewhere." "Probably." There was a pause, the kind of pause where someone is deciding whether to keep talking or let it go. "You have a daughter?" she asked, looking at the truck. He glanced back. His daughter had turned in her seat to watch through the rear windshield. When she saw them both looking, she looked away quickly. He smiled a little. "Yeah, 9 years old. Bus has been broken down, so I'm driving her this week. She's just watching the whole thing. She watches everything," he said. "She's going to have opinions about this later." The woman laughed. A real one, not a polite one. "I'll bet she will." He got the flat off. Put the spare on. Tightened the lugs in a star pattern the way his father had taught him when he was barely older than his daughter was now. Checked it once. Checked it again. Stood up and wiped his hands on his jeans. "You're good to go," he said. "Don't push it over 60 on that spare, and get the flat looked at today if you can." She opened her bag immediately. "Please," she said, holding out a couple of folded bills. "I want to give you something for this." He shook his head. "You don't have to do that. I know I don't have to. I want to." He looked at the money for a moment, then he looked at her. "I appreciate it," he said. "I really do. But somebody stopped for me once, a long time ago, when I really needed it. I never got to pay them back, so," he shrugged. "This is how I do it." She lowered her hand slowly. He asked for her phone, canceled the roadside call so she wouldn't get charged for it, handed it back, and walked to his truck. She stood there in the rain and watched him go. Back in the truck, his daughter was quiet for a minute. Then she said, "You could have taken it, Dad. We could have used it." He pulled onto the highway, checked his mirrors. "Yeah," he said. "Probably. So why didn't you?" He thought about it. Not in a dramatic way. Just the way you think about something when you want to give an honest answer instead of a quick one. Because that's not why I stopped, he said. If I take the money, it starts to feel like that was the reason. And it wasn't. His daughter looked out the window at the cars going by. Then quietly she said, I think she knew that. He didn't say anything, but something about that sat with him the rest of the drive. Life went on. That's the unglamorous part of these stories too. The moment passes, and you go back to your actual life. He dropped his daughter at school, got to work 12 minutes late, and his supervisor gave him a look, but didn't say anything. He worked his shift. Came home, made dinner, helped with homework, fixed a leaky kitchen faucet that had been dripping for 3 weeks, went to bed. The woman in the rain was a memory by Wednesday. By Thursday, he'd half forgotten her face. That's just how it goes. But she hadn't forgotten him. She had built her company from nothing. A regional logistics firm she'd started in her late 30s with one van, one contract, and a lot of nerve. 22 years later, it had over 300 employees, a fleet of vehicles, and a reputation in the industry that she'd earned the hard way. She was good at reading people. It was, genuinely, one of the reasons she'd made it. And something about the man on the highway had stayed with her. It wasn't just the kindness. She'd met kind people. It was the specific quality of it. The fact that he'd done it without performing it. No speech. No waiting to be thanked. He'd just done the thing and walked away. In her experience, people who were genuinely decent didn't announce it. They just moved through the world that way quietly, and you only noticed if you were paying attention. She'd been paying attention. She had her assistant start making calls. It took 4 days and 2 wrong numbers, but they tracked down the right warehouse. Cross-referenced shift rosters with what she remembered. A Ford pickup, a daughter in the front seat, a man who mentioned he drove her because the school bus had broken down. It was enough. She found a name on a roster that matched. She made the call herself. He was eating lunch when his supervisor came and found him. There's a woman on the phone asking for you. Says she met you on Route 9. He stared at him for a second. Okay. He took the call in the break room, standing next to the vending machine, expecting, he didn't know what. An address he'd left behind? A lost item? What he got instead was an offer. She was careful about how she said it. She made it clear this wasn't charity. She ran a logistics company. She needed a fleet operations coordinator, someone to manage scheduling, maintenance, driver communication, vendor relationships. It was a real role, a role she'd been trying to fill for 2 months. And after watching him work on that tire, methodical, calm, knowledgeable, no wasted movement, she thought he might be worth a conversation. The salary was more than double what he made at the warehouse. Full benefits, stable hours, room to grow. He was quiet for so long that she said, "You still there?" "Yeah," he said. "I'm here. Yeah, I'd like to have that conversation." That night after his daughter went to sleep, he sat at the kitchen table for a long time. He wasn't sure what to do with it. Part of him was skeptical, not of her exactly, but of good things in general. Life had taught him to wait and see. His wife had died 3 years ago. Not suddenly, but not slowly enough either. He'd learned to keep his expectations low and his routine steady, because routine was what held things together when everything else was uncertain. But this felt different. It felt real. He called his sister, told her the whole thing. She listened without interrupting, which wasn't like her at all. When he finished, she said, "You know what I think?" "What?" "I think you've been earning this your whole life. You just didn't know anyone was watching." He sat with that for a while, then he said, "Okay." They met at her office a week later. She was exactly who she'd seemed to be on the highway. Direct, no nonsense, not interested in wasting anyone's time. She told him plainly, she wasn't hiring him because he'd been nice to her. She was hiring him because she thought he had what it took to do the job, and the moment on the highway had just shown her something his resume couldn't. "I've hired people with degrees and 10 years of experience who would not get out of a warm car to help a stranger," she said. "You did. That tells me something." He shook her hand. He said yes. 6 weeks later, he started. The first month was hard. New systems, new people, new pressures. But he was good at learning. He was good at staying calm when things went sideways, which in logistics, they always do. The team liked him. The vendors trusted him. He showed up on time, did what he said he'd do, and when he didn't know something, he said so instead of guessing. By the end of the third month, she told him he'd done in 90 days what the last person in that role hadn't managed in a year. He didn't say much in response. He just nodded and went back to work. The refrigerator got fixed. His daughter got her soccer cleats, the ones she'd been asking for since the season started. There was a little breathing room now, not a lot. Just enough to stop doing the math in his head every time he opened his wallet. One evening he was driving home after picking his daughter up from practice, and she was telling him about something that happened at school, a whole complicated story about a misunderstanding with a friend, and he was listening, really listening, not thinking about what was due next month or what needed to be fixed. He realized he hadn't been able to do that in a long time. Just listen without worrying. It was a small thing, but it wasn't. He never told the story at work, neither did she. It just became a thing that had happened. One moment on a rainy highway that neither of them had planned, and both of them had decided to take seriously. His daughter asked him once, about a month after he'd started the new job, "Dad, do you think that lady remembers you stopped for her?" "I think so," he said. "Why?" He thought about it. "Because sometimes," he said, "you can just tell when someone really sees you. Not just looks at you, but actually sees you." I think she did, and I think I did too. And those things stick. His daughter nodded slowly, like she was filing that away somewhere. Good, he thought. Let her file it away. He still drives that same route to work every morning. Same highway, same stretch where she had been pulled over. Sometimes, when the rain comes back and the sky gets gray the way it did that Tuesday, he glances at the shoulder out of habit. He almost didn't stop that day. He thinks about that sometimes. What almost means, how close the whole thing came to just being another car going past in the rain. And then he thinks about his daughter waving from the front window as he pulls out of the driveway every morning now. He thinks about the breathing room, the cleats, the dinner table conversations that aren't quiet with worry anymore. His father used to say, "You don't drive past people, son." He never really understood it as a rule. He always just thought of it as the only way to be. Turns out, that's exactly the same thing.